Hidden in this little bottle might be the cardiology breakthrough of the year.
Breakthrough?
A new cholesterol drug claims to beat out statins. Is this too good to be true? Before you get too excited, let's see what the science really says. Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome to my channel where I review and debunk nutritional misinformation online. In this video, we're going to hear from Nick Norwitz, a Harvard graduate physician and YouTuber, and see what he thinks about this new drug that is a PCSK9 inhibitor, again targeting LDL cholesterol as the damaging factor in atherosclerosis. Let's see what he says, and be sure to wait till the end where you get my final thoughts.
Hidden in this little bottle might be the cardiology breakthrough of the year.
Breakthrough?
But before we get to this little bottle, and I promise we will, I want to talk to you about a huge new cardiology trial that just dropped. One that the media and experts are calling a breakthrough, a massive breakthrough that will save lives. The headlines ran, PCSK9 inhibitors, which are the bazookas of modern cardiology, they can reduce risk of heart attack and stroke by 25%, including in those who have never had a heart attack or stroke before. Now, when I saw these headlines, I truly was hopeful, but then I opened the actual paper, and that's where things got complicated because it's only a half truth. And the other half, the one that didn't make the headlines, it's the difference.
Well, so I call the old paradigm, it's not just me, the old paradigm and the new paradigm when it comes to cholesterol. The old paradigm focuses on total and LDL cholesterol, maybe even the size of the LDL, the particle number, that sort of thing, and treats with medications predominantly. The new paradigm looks at something called metabolic syndrome with triglyceride and HDL, abdominal circumference, blood sugar, blood pressure, of course, smoking. It cuts across all different treatments. But in the new paradigm, the treatment is predominantly diet and lifestyle, not medication. So this is where a lot of the clashing comes in, the diagnosis, what do you look at in the blood test, and then the treatment. Does it have to be a drug or can it be lifestyle?
Now, despite the flashy and hopefully entertaining introduction, which was engineered to get you right where I want you, here and ready to learn, I want to open with a promise. This isn't going to be a shallow gotcha piece. My goal here, as it is always, is to provide a balanced and thoughtful assessment of the latest findings, to shine a spotlight where it doesn't normally get shown. And, just to self-plug, after watching this video, if you're hungry for more knowledge and nuance, I'll flag you can find this in the associated Stay Curious Metabolism newsletter linked below. There, I include deeper discussions of other medications, the invention of a fascinating cyclic molecule, a cyclic peptide that slashes LDL and ApoB, and what I'm doing myself, an experiment I've been running. But with that, let's get on with these data.
So up until now, the primary prevention, secondary prevention use of medications without regard to diet change is, entrenched in modern medicine in the US, medication care, where if it's a primary prevention kind of typical use, the bang for the buck is pretty small. Even with statins and other drugs, primary prevention, there are even medical organizations that say it's just not strong enough and yet there's some controversy there. For secondary prevention, meaning you've already had a heart attack or a stroke, the results using a medication is better, stronger, more powerful. It's not curative, but it just reduces the risk. So with that context, there's a difference between primary and secondary prevention in terms of potency of effect.
The major newsworthy item I want to discuss centers around a double-blinded randomized placebo-controlled trial, a gold standard in modern medicine, recently published in the top clinical medical journal in the world, the New England Journal of Medicine. Now, the headline finding went that evolocumab, I know, long jargony word, it's a PCSK9 inhibitor marketed as Repatha, maybe you've heard that drug name, it was shown to reduce the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events, like heart attack and stroke, by 25% and, importantly, improved outcomes in individuals without a prior heart attack or stroke. In other words, primary prevention. So what is a PCSK9 inhibitor anyway? How do these drugs work? Well, PCSK9 itself is a protein produced mainly on the liver, but other places as well, that binds to LDL receptors on liver cells. These are the same LDL receptors that clear LDL particles and cholesterol from your blood. So when PCSK9 binds to an LDL receptor, it promotes the receptor's degradation. You can think of it as if the LDL receptor were like paper, PCSK9 throws it in the shredder. Thus, by inhibiting PCSK9 with these drugs, these PCSK9 inhibitors, these bazookas of modern cardiology, it prevents the LDL receptor from being degraded, leading to more LDL receptors, leading to more LDL and cholesterol pulling out of your bloodstream, thus plummeting your LDL, cholesterol, and ApoB levels.
Yeah, it's important, I think, to remember, though, that these medicines are monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies are being called drugs, but they're really not a small molecule drug. They're monoclonal antibodies. So antibodies are a different form. They attack specific things. Well, they're thought to attack specific things. But with other monoclonal antibodies, there are side effects that can happen over time, including cancers. And so you always want to be sure what we're calling a drug. Now, this isn't a vaccine. It's a monoclonal antibody, and it's not a drug that is like a single molecule drug that you would think about, like a statin. So it's a special monoclonal antibody sort of intervention.
I promise the data is worth the wait. I'm going to get to that in a moment. Hold on with me for just one more moment while I tell you something else that is critically important. The difference between primary prevention and secondary prevention. Primary prevention refers to reducing cardiovascular risk in individuals without a history of heart disease, heart attack, or stroke. And secondary prevention targets those who have already had events like heart attack and stroke, or who have cardiovascular disease established in their vessels. Now, and this is important, these results were touted by headlines as massive news because they proved a benefit for primary prevention. That's new, maybe. But here's the nuance that was missing, and it really matters. This trial was not in low-risk patients. It wasn't even really a primary prevention trial. In fact, the trial's registration, the title itself, the effects of evolocumab, this PCSK9 inhibitor, in patients at high risk of cardiovascular disease, makes that explicit. These were high-risk patients.
There we get into that primary versus secondary prevention, which is the artificial dichotomy. You may have not had a heart attack or a stroke, and you might have high risk. You might not have had a heart attack or a stroke, and you might have atherosclerosis on a coronary artery calcium score. You have signs of calcium, which is a sign of healing of that atherosclerosis. So there's a gray area between primary and secondary prevention. And to say that this was low-risk patients because they were primary prevention because they didn't have a heart attack or a stroke is missing out that actually they were high risk. So that you want to be careful in using a drug like this, a monoclonal antibody, if you don't need it or if you're at a low risk, basically is what Nick is saying here.
Now, with all that behind us, let's actually look at what the trial showed. This was a double-blinded randomized placebo-controlled trial that enrolled 12,257 participants who were then randomized to have the drug, the PCSK9 inhibitor, called evolocumab, or a placebo.
You know, you can tell the power of a drug or the lack of potency of a drug by how many people have to be in a clinical trial. So if you have to have tens of thousands of people in the clinical trial, you're looking for a very small effect. So meaning the effect size or the potency of that medication is going to be pretty low. You can tell that because they designed the study to find a very small outcome change, and they needed a lot of people to be able to find that study. So that's a pre-planned comparison to know how many people to enroll.
Now, the primary endpoint was a composite score of death from heart disease, heart attack, or stroke. This is clustered as the major adverse cardiovascular events, MACE, or 3-point MACE. And the results were impressive. They showed a 25% relative risk reduction. So that's a hazards ratio of 0.75. That's what that means.
So here again, the criticism of the older statin trials is that they touted the results based on relative risk, not absolute risk. The absolute risk and relative risk here being described as 25% relative risk, 1.8 absolute risk.
And in this case, the absolute risk reduction was from 8% of events in the placebo group to 6.2% of events in the treatment group, the PCSK9 inhibitor group. So a drop of 1.8%. Now, 1.8% is smaller than 25%, but these are major outcomes, so I wouldn't dismiss that out of hand. It's still meaningful. And in terms of lipid-lowering effects, in a sub-study of 2,000 participants examining the detailed lipid-lowering patterns after 48 weeks, the findings were as follows. LDL dropped from 116 to 45, ApoB was halved from 102 to 52, HDL cholesterol remained stable, triglycerides dropped a bit from 160 to 136, and the lipoprotein(a), LP(a), did drop from 34 to 19.
So if you looked at this from the metabolic syndrome standpoint, the new paradigm, you would see that the triglyceride went down, the HDL went up. These are the ways you want the things to change from the metabolic syndrome new paradigm point of view. And even the old paradigm, although we don't see the total on this slide, the old paradigm, it really dropped that LDL down.
So, wrapping up, where does this leave us? At a high level, I think a fair and balanced summary is as follows. This trial demonstrates that the PCSK9 inhibitor, evolocumab, it does improve cardiovascular outcomes in high-risk patients, patients with pre-existing cardiovascular disease or high-risk diabetes. However, this paper, these headlines, provide no data on risk reduction in low-risk, otherwise healthy populations. That is a qualification, an important one, but not a dismissal. So to recap, the drug works, but the context is being oversold.
Well, and the potency is very small. So this is similar to the primary prevention results. Well, sometimes the reanalyses of the statin trials where you throw out certain ones actually doesn't show much benefit at all for primary prevention. Here, the relative risk of 25%, the absolute risk of 8 to 6.2% absolute risk. If you put it the other way, most of these people weren't going to get a problem at all, and they had less of a problem if they were on the medication. Those effects are relatively small, as evidenced by the relatively large sample size in the trial. And then, you know, the argument that we have that, well, there should have been a lifestyle arm in that trial, or lifestyle can have similar effects. Of course, it targets metabolic syndrome, not the LDL old paradigm. But why not give these interventions a shot, a try, a go, if you will? If we had the statin trials and all these other PCSK9 drug trials, monoclonal antibody trials, include an arm of lifestyle. So the companies are not interested necessarily in what the best outcome is for these people, these patients. They're trying to find that their drug works over placebo. And I guess that's what FDA asks them to do for marketing. Why not ask them also to include a lifestyle arm so that they, you know, out of the kindness of their hearts can see, well, for those who can't afford or tolerate medication, maybe they can help us find other ways to address this cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis problem.
That said, we've only just begun because there's a lot more you need to know. So now I want to pivot and compare these drugs, these bazookas of cardiology, the PCSK9 inhibitors, to statins, frontline therapy. And I'll tell you which I'd choose if I needed to, and why. So statins, again, they're frontline therapy for high cholesterol. But in my opinion, they have significant, not in my opinion, the data show they have significant downsides. As we've previously reviewed on this channel, this includes causing insulin resistance, lowering GLP-1 levels, harming mitochondria, and raising diabetes risk.
Well, and in several of my patients, they're monitoring these things themselves. They come in with an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, this is one great thing about the privilege of being a doctor in a practice. I get to meet lots of people. I've had people who show in their own body that if they go on a statin medicine, their insulin and their glucose goes up. And yes, it lowers the LDL, but at the expense of raising these other things. And so, there are downsides to using medications, any kind of medicine. Well, I really like Dr. Norwitz. He is thoughtful. He has personal experience that went against the medical mainstream at the time. And yet I'm a little worried or curious, or is he going to be a cholesterol paradigm guy, believer, or an inflammation metabolic syndrome, is the most important aspect to drive atherosclerosis. So let me rephrase that. Is he going to be believing or saying the science says cholesterol reduction is a good way to base our treatments? Or is it inflammation reduction and diet change as an alternate or even better approach? It'll be interesting to see, because right now he's kind of on, like most people, kind of on both sides of the street here, talking about cholesterol reduction without food change, and then talking about how cholesterol might not be bad in the context of a low-carb diet. So it'll be interesting to see how the science plays out. One very interesting paper recently basically said that the ultra-low-fat and the ultra-low-carb approaches both helped insulin resistance, both reduced insulin resistance. So it didn't matter so much what the food was, the metabolism got better. So maybe that's going to be the end result, that both work. I don't know. But I'm putting my teaching on the lifestyle side and not so much medication driven. In fact, I like to take people off medication safely, as what I do on a daily basis. So if you like this, please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. I'm not too impressed with the cholesterol reduction as the major and only way to reduce cardiovascular disease. And I know a lot of doctors think that way, but you can also change what you eat, change lifestyle, and get dramatic results. Although they've never been compared head to head, would love to see that trial. If you like, please like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Look out for new content on Wednesdays and Fridays. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our YouTube membership for early access and exclusive live Q&As with me. Just click the join button below or support us with a PayPal in the description.